remember the day I was waking up. I was like, okay, it's a good day. Everything's fine. Let's go get some coffee at the store. And then I get a call from the IT coordinator, and he's like, hey, Sal, we have a problem here. And I was like, what's the problem? And he's like, well, we have ransomware in our file server. And I was like, gotta be kidding me. My blood shot down, and I was like, okay, I gotta get over there right away. I didn't get my coffee, or I was having a good day. It's like everything's gonna be fine. So, but just notice at that time I already implemented MFA on most of the servers. But what they did is I think they were able to access one of the servers and run their commands. I didn't implement it on all the servers because we weren't ready. I think it was our camera servers. So we weren't ready to implement MFA, but they were able to get into that server and push out their commands and scripts. And they did ransomware on all our servers. And at that time, the servers were still working. But I think when I came back, I looked at the logs. I looked at every log on the VPN, on the servers, who it was, and I found out who it was, and then I found out how they got in. And the oddest thing is that they were on the network for 2 hours, but it looks like they kicked themselves out because they didn't know that we had virtual machines. I think they were trying to destroy our data backups and everything. I mean, we had backups, and we have backups within our virtuals as well. And as we had those backups, they didn't notice that one of the virtuals was actually the one that ran the VPN, and they ran a script or something. They kicked themselves off the network, and they didn't do as much damage to our servers, and everything was still operational. And I was able to disable the account and make sure that I disable the VPN and check all the, I was checking on the firewall, making sure everything was okay. And at that point, they already infiltrated, they already did their damage, but I was able to pinpoint where they were coming from, and I was able to shut it down. But then at the same time, I was like, I'm lucky that they actually kicked themselves out. And at that point, I had to call my cybersecurity insurance, and they told me, leave everything as it is, and then we'll come in. And I told them, well, I disabled the VPN because I know where they came from. And as I disabled the VPN, they came in, they monitor everything, they checked everything, they looked into our servers. It took a couple months, I would say September, October. Everything was coming back to normal, like late October. I was able to grab the backups, get everything up and going, rebuilt everything. I actually was able to do everything without asking for a third-party vendor. It was going to cost us quite a bit. I mean, for them to come in and replace everything. And they were, in the end, it wasn't a data breach because I implemented MFA before they were able to get into the servers. They noticed MFA, and I think they said, oh, now we can't get the data. While they were doing the reconnaissance, they were just trying to figure out our network, figure out where everything was at. But at that time, I implemented MFA on our Google, implemented it on our servers, and I kind of think they got surprised, and they didn't get any data. So they did the cybersecurity team was a team of 15. And just to share that the group that was in our network, I'm just going to share, it was the Kira group, the Russian group. And, the cybersecurity team, they told me, kind of seems like the Kira member was kind of amateur, but I'm kind of thinking they were getting ready, and they kind of went to our virtuals and kicked themselves off. And we actually, at that point, I mean, they would have done more damage, got probably our computers, local users, gone into a different VLAN, but specifically our servers were in a specific VLAN, so they were able to access all our servers. But I mean, they kind of they damaged all our servers. They put a Kira ransomware. They did send out an email to a couple users, but the thing is that we were keeping an eye on it, and nothing came out after 5 months up to a year. There was a dark web website that Kira puts their information wherever they got ransomware, and we didn't get posted or anything. So more likely, I was calling it a bluff, and I was like, I'm not going to give in to these people, and I'm not going to give them anything. I'm not going to communicate with them. I don't think so. They did anything because they were just in our network within 2 or 3 hours trying to do the damage right away. But they didn't. I mean, they didn't succeed in bringing our network down. They didn't succeed in getting the data. But then afterwards, I had to do a lot of cleanup. There was the firewall, I had to take a look. The VPN, I shut it down completely. I had to check the password resets on everything, on all the accounts. We had to do kind of like rebuilding of our domain, making sure the cybersecurity team was able to monitor everything, and they looked at everything within the 3 months or I think 3 to 5 months that they were in our network. They didn't find anything afterwards. After I shut that down, that opening access for that threat actor to come into our network, it just completely, they completely shut down the outside world to the inside. So it's important to look at the firewall, especially if you have outside inside rules, and just specifically aim it to the server and make sure it's not open to anybody. So that's one thing that I've learned, that there was, I would say, hundreds of rules in our access control list for that firewall. And I went through each of them. I mean, I was working up to six days a week with the network admin, and we were trying to figure out everything. We actually organized our documentation. I mean, we organized everything, what we knew, what we didn't know, and we had a sort of like a contingency plan, just in case situations like this happen. I actually had a shutdown switch, a command button I was going to use, but I called the cybersecurity experts, and the team. They told me, don't do anything. I was going to shut down the whole network just to be sure that I'm safe, but I actually figured out where they came from right away just by looking at logs. And I've learned a lot. I mean, I've learned to make sure that firewall, make sure I keep everything updated, make sure I know everything about the network. There's things that I didn't even know of. Some vendors kind of in the previous director kind of had that open access still with kind of vendors. And it's always important to keep up to date, making sure you disable accounts so they don't have access within your network. Or I did notice some software that I was like, wait a sec, what is this software? And it was based on the previous director. And, I was here just to improve their network security wise. And I mean, in the end, I've learned a lot about the network, and I feel like we're more secure now. I mean, we have endpoints, we have different group policies, we have like closed ports, making sure we have vulnerability testing, and usually we have third party as well. I mean, I have some policies that if anybody logs in RDP or anything on my servers, I get an SMS text message right away or email. So I have a SMTP relay on all the servers, and I've learned a lot. It makes me more precautious, but I was kind of introduced into this new school network, and being introduced to a new school network, it always comes with challenges, understanding it, and then trying to implement different security, but in the same time, you're getting pushback. And then after this, I think I didn't get pushback right away.
I say